Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Sunday, February the 23rd. We're going to cover Sunday's six-game slate and go position by position like we always do. Hit on some plays that stand out to me the most looking at this slate the night before. We'll touch on DraftKings pricing. We will switch over to Yahoo. We'll hit on a couple of guys that I like over on Yahoo as well. Just before we do get started, guys, as always, would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. Make sure you subscribe as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. And if you have not yet, you can follow me on Twitter if you want to stay up to date with me. I am very active over on Twitter, so if you want to give me a follow, link is down in the description at DFS by Noah. Also, linked down in the description is my Patreon. If you do want to check out all the exclusive content I have to offer over there, you can check out the Patreon link down below. I do provide a lot of updated content over there. I write an article Monday through Friday. I give out updated core plays pretty much every single day, especially Monday through Friday. And lately, I've been trying to give out more updated content on the weekends as well. So check out the Patreon, see all that I have to offer, especially with a day like Saturday when we had like all that news break on Saturday with Luka getting ruled out, Porzingis getting ruled out, Jimmy Butler being ruled out. The slate just really changed. I do provide a lot of updated content, updated thoughts on the slate over on Patreon. So like I said, you can check all that out, link down below. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at Sunday's slate. We'll start off at point guard. Two injuries here at the top that are going to impact the slate. D'Angelo Russell and Damian Lillard are both already ruled out for today's slate. So our most expensive point guard on DraftKings, looking at their pricing, is CJ McCollum. He's $8,400 on DK. Really benefited last game with Damian Lillard ruled out. As you would expect, he played really well. 37 minutes for CJ McCollum, 50 DraftKings points. Honestly, that was kind of like your typical CJ McCollum with no Lillard game. If you look at his numbers this season with Lillard off the floor, they're really good. His usage rate, it's over 30%. His fantasy point per minute average is he averages over 1.2 fantasy points per minute or close to that. 533 minutes this season with CJ on and Lillard off. Nearly a 34% usage rate, averaging close to 1.2 fantasy points per minute. His assist percentage is at 28%. In that game against the Pelicans, CJ did have a double-double with points and assists. 27 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds, 50 DK points. I'd probably project him for similar numbers today. Maybe a little bit or a little bit less, I should say. The matchup isn't as good. Obviously, that was a great spot for McCollum against the Pelicans, a team that plays fast, that's really not good defensively. Detroit, also not that great defensively. They do rank, in terms of defensive rating, Detroit they're 21st in defensive rating, but Detroit does play at a pretty slow pace. If we look at pace this season, they are all the way down at they are all the way down to the bottom at 27th in pace. So that's a little bit of a knock against McCollum, but he's still just going to get so much usage. He's going to be involved in the offense so much. He's still in play for me on DraftKings. He's not a must-play by any means. I thought he was close to a must-play on the last slate when he was 6,600. Now that he's 8,400 today, you can definitely look elsewhere. You don't have to play him. I still think he's in play, though. Yahoo, I think that's where he stands out the most, though. Like, if you look at McCollum's price on Yahoo, he's cheaper than guys like Drew Holiday, Fred VanVleet, SGA. Like, give me CJ over on Yahoo at $30. I still think he's probably $6 to $8 too cheap. Like, he should be like $35, $36 on Yahoo. So we're still getting him at a pretty big discount over there. And like I said, you can play him on DraftKings, just not a must-play now that his price has come up over, or almost over $2,000. He was $6,600, so $1,800 price increase for CJ McCollum. Not nearly as strong of a play as he was on the last slate. But I would still play him over guys like Kyle Lowry, Chris Paul. I would prefer McCollum over those two guys. Drew Holiday as well. Like, I'd prefer McCollum over all these 7K guards. I think he's the guy I like the most if you're going to pay up. But with the injuries too, a guy like D'Angelo Russell, I guess Lillard kind of being out gives us some value as well with someone like Simons or Gary Trent if we wanted to go there. But the D'Angelo Russell injury does open up some value at point guard that we'll talk about in a second. But just looking at other options in this mid-range, Draymond Green, he's going to be ruled out for today. We've already gotten the word that he's not going to play for Sunday's game against the Pelicans. So this could definitely give us some value. Draymond's not much of a high-usage player, but he does kind of contribute in a lot of categories. He's a pretty ball-dominant player. Like, he'll have the ball in his hands a lot. Just doesn't take a lot of shots. So maybe getting him off the floor will allow a guy like Andrew Wiggins or maybe Jordan Poole to run the offense more. So we'll talk about them in a second. Derrick Rose, he was really disappointing on the last slate. only played 23 minutes against Milwaukee in a game that blew out, only had 19 DraftKings points. That was a spot where you kind of would expect, I wouldn't say you would expect Rose to struggle, but you could have definitely seen past him failing there. Obviously, with it being a blowout, that limited his minutes, them losing by 20. I don't expect Derrick Rose to play like 36 minutes. He was getting like massive minutes before he got injured. He was getting like 34, 35 minutes. I don't know if we're going to see that from Rose, especially now that we're in the second half of the season. Detroit has nothing to play for. They want to get their young guys minutes. But if Derrick Rose is going to continue to start and play like 26 to 28 minutes in close games, I think he's still in play at 5,900. Obviously a great spot against Portland, a team that plays fast. They're 11th in pace this season. They're really bad defensively. They are 27th in defensive rating. Without like Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson, with all these guys out, Derrick Rose does get a lot of usage. He averages like 1.3 to 1.4 fantasy points per minute. So he is still in play for me at 5,900. I don't think he's a must play, but still a guy that you could go to in that mid-range. Bruce Brown, though, we saw really do well last game with Reggie Jackson out. 32 minutes, 41 DraftKings points. I think his minutes, now that Jackson is no longer on the team, I think his minutes are going to be very secure. Probably going to play 32 to 34 minutes a night, if not more, against Portland, a really good matchup. Bruce Brown, fine to go to as well. I think I would prefer to roster Rose, even though Rose is going to play less minutes. I still think he's a guy that gives you 40, 45 point upside. But Brown's a fine option to consider as well. Tomas Satoransky, with all the injuries to Chicago right now, like his minutes feel very secure. Probably going to play 32 to 34 minutes. Great matchup against the Wizards. I think he's fine to go to at 5,300. But in terms of value at this position, with no Draymond Green, we should see Jordan Poole have the ball in his hands a little bit more. Since moving into the starting lineup the last two games, he's played 32 minutes in both games, 22 and 29 DraftKings points. Great spot against the Pelicans. Pace-up spot here for the Warriors. We know the Pelicans do play at a very fast pace. They are third in pace this season. They're not good defensively. I mean, if we're going to get 30, 32 minutes from Jordan Poole with no Draymond, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. Should be able to pick up more assists. So at 4,600, another guy you could look to as a value option. But my favorite value point guard is Jordan McLaughlin. I think with D'Angelo Russell already ruled out, it's very likely that Jordan McLaughlin gets the start at point guard. And when this guy has gotten minutes, he has been very productive this season, averaging over a fantasy point per minute. There was a stretch when D'Angelo Russell was not on the team before, like after the trade, before he arrived in Minnesota. There was a stretch where McLaughlin was starting. He started two games against the Hawks and the Clippers, played 31 and 37 minutes, 33 and 48 DraftKings points. With no Towns, no Russell, like there is a lot of usage to go around. I think we're going to see guys like Jordan McLaughlin, Malik Beasley. These guys are going to have to take a ton of shots. They're going to have the ball in their hands a ton. I know it's not the best spot against Denver, but he's still so cheap today. Even if he plays like 25 minutes, I think McLaughlin, with how productive of a player he is for fantasy, like he can still give you 25 to 30 DraftKings points. And obviously, there is potential for him to get like 34, 35 minutes because Russell was already playing like 34 minutes. You got to give those minutes to somebody, and I think McLaughlin's going to soak up a large majority of Russell's minutes today. So I still like him even in a tough matchup. At 4,300 on DK, I think he's a really good value. He has minimum salary over on Yahoo, so I think he's one of the better values over there as well. Just looks like one of the best options overall. Only concern I should say is that maybe this game blows out, but I believe like even in a blowout, Jordan McLaughlin probably will still play because he's one of their young guys. They might still have him out there even in a blowout, so he just feels really safe today. If he doesn't start and they do something weird and like start Jarrett Culver or something, that would lower my interest in McLaughlin. Luckily, this is a 6 o'clock game, so it's one of the first games on the slate. So we will know before lock who they're going to start for Russell. If it's not McLaughlin, I'd lower my expectation for him. But if he does wind up in the starting lineup, like I assume he will be, he looks like a really good value play, even in a less than ideal matchup. But I think that's probably it for point guard values. I was very high on Anthony Simons on the last slate with Damian Lillard ruled out. With Lillard still out today, you could play Simons. He didn't start that game. He came off the bench. Still got 27 minutes off the bench, but wasn't that productive, only 19 DraftKings points. He probably plays like 28 minutes off the bench, probably going to give you 20 DraftKings points. That's probably a projection for him, like a rough projection I would have to say. So he's fine, but I think I would much rather roster McLaughlin for just a couple hundred more. If I can find the salary, he's the guy that I would rather go to there as a value option. So that's kind of what I'm looking to at point guard. Definitely a position that has some pretty good value today with all the injuries that have already come out. And we saw yesterday, like, there could be even more injuries that break throughout the day, so maybe even more value could open up. But moving on to shooting guard, at the top here, you got Bradley Beal, 9,600 against the Bulls. A fine option to go to, but I think I would rather play Zach LaVine in a much better matchup. Really like Zach LaVine today. 9,100 on DraftKings. He's my favorite shooting guard to pay up for, and definitely one of my favorite stud options on this slate overall. And if we look at Yahoo, look at their pricing, very similar. A little bit of a discount dropping down from Beal to LaVine. I like going with that, or I like getting the savings there, saving $5 and playing LaVine in this spot. Such a good matchup for Zach LaVine. I've talked about it a ton this season. You guys probably already know this by now. But getting a matchup against the Wizards is like one of the best spots you can get. The Wizards, they're playing at the 5th fastest pace in the league this season in terms of defensive rating. They are dead last in defensive rating. So it's pretty much the ideal situation. You got a fast-paced team, a team that doesn't play defense. That's what you look for in NBA DFS. So this is a great spot for Zach LaVine. It's a matchup he's had a lot of success in this season, averaging over 50 DraftKings points a game through 3 games against the Wizards. These teams just played right before the All-Star break, and LaVine had 63 DraftKings points against them in 37 minutes. Usually, if Zach LaVine's not a guy that I go out of my way to pay up for, but that's definitely like not going to be the case today. I think I'm going to be going out of my way to pay up for him. I did like him a lot on that day he played the Wizards a couple weeks ago. He was my cover boy for that slate, and he's going to be my cover boy today. I definitely like Zach LaVine here. Looks like one of the best stud options on the slate, on a slate where we don't have guys like James Harden, LeBron, AD. Obviously, Damian Lillard's off the board, Towns is off the board. There's some other studs like Giannis we don't have, so I think LaVine does look like one of the best pay-up options today. But then you have a guy like Andrew Wiggins for $8K. I think with Wiggins' price coming up, I don't know if he's going to be a guy that I get to today. I think I would rather try and play CJ McCollum over him for just a couple $100 more. Now, with Draymond Green out, with Steph Curry still not able to play, like Andrew Wiggins should get a ton of usage. If game is competitive, which I think it can be, right now I believe it has an 8-point spread. Warriors are 8-point home dogs. If this game can stay close, like Andrew Wiggins is probably going to play 32 to 34 minutes. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. He should be able to take a ton of shots. Just the offense is going to run through Andrew Wiggins, especially with Draymond Green out. I just think I would rather roster McCollum. I think McCollum a little bit safer than Wiggins. Even if the game's close, like I don't know if it's a lock that Andrew Wiggins plays 34 minutes. Obviously, the Warriors have nothing to play for. So I think I'd probably go to McCollum over him. Andrew Wiggins, though, still a fine option. Really good matchup. He's going to get all the usage today. No Draymond. It should just be an even bigger boost for Andrew Wiggins. I think I would definitely roster him over a guy like Drew Holiday, just talking between those two. Like, I'd probably take Wiggins over Holiday and VanVleet and DeRozan. But between McCollum and Wiggins, I'd prefer McCollum there. But other shooting guard options, I guess Victor Oladipo, kind of a key injury to watch. He's actually doubtful heading into Sunday. Don't know if this really impacts much. I mean, maybe Aaron Holiday gets more run. Maybe Jeremy Lamb moves into the starting lineup, but I don't even think Lamb's that cheap. Yeah, he's 4,800. Like, even if we get 26 to 28 minutes from Jeremy Lamb against the Raptors, I probably don't really go there. So I guess Oladipo's status really isn't as impactful as you may think it is. Because I mean, he's really not doing much this season offensively. Not getting a lot of usage. He's only playing like 26 to 28 minutes. Even coming off the All-Star break, he only played 25 minutes against the Knicks. So, yeah, I really don't think that impacts much today. Malik Beasley, though, been playing incredibly well as of late. With D'Angelo Russell already ruled out, that should just allow Malik Beasley to do even more offensively. This is a revenge game for him against his former team, against the Nuggets. I mean, if we're going to get like 34 to 36 minutes from Malik Beasley today, which is what he's been playing, I think he's definitely in play even with the price tag up to 5,800. It's not a good matchup. It is a pretty tough spot against his former team, a good defensive team. Denver also plays really slow. But 18 shots, 25 shots, 12 shots. Like, Malik Beasley is chucking the ball right now with the Timberwolves. And no Russell, a guy that takes a lot of shots, a high usage player. We should see even more usage go to Malik Beasley. And with the Timberwolves this season, he's had a usage rate close to 30%, if I'm not mistaken. I can take a look at that real quick. I'm pretty sure his usage is close to 30%. I know he's averaged like 1.2 fantasy points per minute. I don't know if we're going to see that kind of production from Malik Beasley moving forward, In his short sample this season with the Timberwolves, he's got a 26% usage rate, averaging 1.13 or 1.13 fantasy points per minute. If you were to take Towns and Russell off the floor, it's going to be a really small sample size, but I'm sure his numbers would look even better. So at 5,800, definitely like Malik Beasley today. I'd prefer him over guys like Schroeder, Hart, Will Barton. I think Beasley stands out the most there. But Will Barton is in play for me at 5,400. First game back from his injury, coming off the All-Star break, 32 minutes, 36 Draftkings points. Really good spot today against the Timberwolves, a team that plays fast, really not that good defensively. If we're going to get 32 to 34 minutes from Will Barton, I think he probably projects for 32 to 34 Draftkings points, which feels pretty good at 5,400. Even coming off a big game where he scored 36 DK points, his price only jumped up $100. So Will Barton, a fine guy to go to as well at 5,400. But in terms of value plays at shooting guard, Gary Trent got the start for Damian Lillard last game, played monster minutes. His price tag came up to 5,200 though, so not a must play by any means. I'd probably play guys like Barton, Beasley over him. With the price coming up, I doubt I'd go there today. Same with Simons. I think there's just better value out there. So yeah, guys, I think we covered everything for shooting guard in terms of value plays, what I'm seeing looking at this slate Saturday night. So let's go ahead and move on to small forward now. So at small forward, looking at guys I haven't already talked about, Brandon Ingram, someone that burned me quite a bit Friday night. I was very high on him in that game against Portland. He got into some late foul trouble, only wound up playing 28 minutes, had 5 fouls in that game, lost a good amount of time because of foul trouble. I would expect if he's not in foul trouble and if this game stays close, we're probably going to get 34 to 36 minutes from Brandon Ingram. No Draymond Green just makes the Warriors defense even worse. It's already a pretty bad defensive team, but losing Draymond Green obviously it becomes an even better matchup for Brandon Ingram. So at 6,900, I'll be going right back to him today. This is still a guy that averages 1.2 fantasy points per minute this season, has a usage rate close to 30%. We'll pull up his numbers this season just so you guys can see. Even with Zion in the lineup, Brandon Ingram has still been one of the more productive players on this team, along with Zion. Obviously, Zion takes a lot of usage. He's got a 30% usage rate this season, but Brandon Ingram still has a 28.7% usage rate, averaging over 1.2 fantasy points per minute. Price tag didn't move, only came up $100. Brandon Ingram is still way too cheap today on DraftKings, so I like him a lot at his DK salary of $6,900. I think on Yahoo, you could probably look elsewhere. He's $33 at small forward. Between him and Andrew Wiggins, I think I'd probably just play Andrew Wiggins for cheaper because he is $3 less, but still do have a little bit of interest in Brandon Ingram. Mainly a DraftKings play, though. That's where I like him the most today at $6,900. But other small forwards I haven't talked about. I think with Russell out, that should help Juancho Hernangomez a little bit, should allow him to get more shots up. Lately, with Towns out, he's been playing really well. Got 38 minutes against Charlotte, 37 DK points. Only played 26 minutes against Boston, which was kind of a surprise, but still was productive with 29 DK points. Should probably get 30 minutes today, I'd have to guess, if not more. It's also a revenge game for him against his former team, so I think Juancho Hernangomez makes plenty of sense at 5,100 if you do want to go there. In terms of cheap options, though, at small forward, I think the value play that really stands out here is Eric Pascal. So with Draymond Green already ruled out, I am assuming that Eric Pascal gets the start. Whenever he has started for Green this season, he's been relatively productive. He's put up pretty good fantasy numbers. He usually gets the minutes as well. I know that game against Houston blew out, but you got 32 minutes from Eric Pascal that game, 27 minutes against Phoenix. He's still getting 26 to 28 minutes off the bench most nights. Now that Green's out, should move into the starting lineup, probably plays 5-6 more minutes than he normally would. Great matchup against the Pelicans, pace-up spot here for the Warriors. I really like Eric Pascal as a value option at 4,400. He is very cheap on Yahoo as well. He's only $12. I think he looks like one of the better value options at power forward if you do want to go to him at the position. There's really not any other small forwards I like for value there, so I think Pascal definitely stands out as the best cheap option available. Like JJ Redick, Jeremy Lamb, Troy Brown, Okogie. I don't really want to go to these guys. Even with Russell out, I don't really want to play Josh Okogie. The dude's just not great for fantasy. Beasley, Hernangomez, those guys have really been taken over. McLaughlin can be a productive player when he's on the floor, so I'd rather roster him at the same salary. So yeah, that's probably it for small forward. This Toscano Anderson guy got some good run last game against Houston for the Warriors. He played 25 minutes. I'm sure a lot of that had to do with blowout. But no Draymond. Should probably get about 20, 22 minutes off the bench. At 3,300, I mean, he's not the worst value. If the game blows out, he's going to be out there, even if it is a blowout. And I think one of the reasons I like Pascal is because even if the blowout, or even if the Warriors get blown out here, Pascal will most likely still be out there even in a blowout. So feels very safe at 4,400. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and switch over to power forward. So at power forward today, at the top, I don't really like much here. Siakam, Sabonis, in a slow game against the Raptors Pacers game should be a pretty slow game. Right now, in terms of total, this game does have the lowest total on the slate. Lowest total on the slate at 219. Two pretty slow-paced teams. Just not a game I have much interest in. So I don't really see myself paying up for Sabonis or Siakam. I think Zion at 8,500 is fine to go to, but his price tag is getting up to a point where you kind of have to ask yourself, is he worth that salary? Don't really know if I want to pay 8,500 for him on a slate where we have guys like Zach LaVine in a really good spot. We talked about some other guards you could pay it for, like Wiggins, McCollum. These guys you could look to. So don't really see myself paying up for power forward in general. If I had to go to one guy, it would probably be Christian Wood. I like this matchup a lot for Christian Wood against the Trailblazers. For some odd reason, Christian Wood came off the bench last game against Milwaukee. I'm pretty sure that was because of Giannis. I think there were some reports that came out that Dwayne Casey moved him to the bench because they didn't want him starting against Giannis. They just didn't like that matchup. I'd assume Christian Wood moves back into the starting lineup, but that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on. This is a 9 o'clock game. It's the last game on the slate, so I don't know if we get this news before lock. But if Christian Wood does start, it is a good matchup against Whiteside. Whiteside, not a good defender. This is a spot where Wood needs to play big minutes. They're going to need his size out there to defend Hassan Whiteside. And when this guy's gotten minutes this season, he has been incredibly productive, giving you over a fantasy point per minute, playing monster minutes when he's out of foul trouble, when games are close. He gets 34 to 35 minutes. If he starts, I have to assume he plays 34 to 35 minutes. So at 7,400, Christian Wood, definitely my favorite power forward to pay up for. I think on Yahoo, he looks really good over there as well. He's at center, or no, they actually moved into power forward, so that made Christian Wood even more appealing. You can play him at power forward over on Yahoo, $28. You don't have to use up one of your center spots. So I do like him quite a bit. With Damian Lillard still out, Carmelo Anthony should definitely benefit. Had a really good game last game against the Pelicans, 32 minutes, 31 Draftkings points. I'd probably project him for similar numbers today, probably 32 to 34 minutes. Gives him a projection of about 30 Draftkings points. He's been about a fantasy point per minute player this season with Damian Lillard off the floor. Does have the second highest usage rate on the team when you take Lillard off the floor. So Carmelo's firmly in play at 5,600. But I do really like Naz Reid, 5,500 on DK. Naz Reid did get the start last game against Boston. Once we got that news that he was going to start, he became a core play for me. I really liked him once we got that news. Naz Reid's a guy that's been a very productive player on a point per minute basis. It's just a matter of, was he going to get the minutes or not? Like in 22 minutes against Charlotte, he was really productive, still had 23 DK points. Only 14 minutes against the Clippers, put up 28 DK points. This is a guy that can give you 35, 40 DraftKings points if they play him 30 minutes. And when he started Friday night against Boston, they played him 33 minutes, and he had 38 DraftKings points in that game. Like in a spot against Jokic where they're going to need a guy with size out there, I assume Naz Reid probably plays 32 to 34 minutes again. I assume he sticks in the starting lineup. The price tag came up, but this is still a guy that's probably going to give you 30, 35 DraftKings points. That almost feels like his floor when he's getting 30 minutes. So I still have a ton of interest in Naz Reid at 5,500. I think on Yahoo he looks very appealing over there as well. They bumped up his price to $15, but that's still way too cheap for Naz Reid if he's going to continue to play 30-plus minutes. We'll take a look at his numbers this season with the Timberwolves. I know he's been over a fantasy point per minute player. No D'Angelo Russell, no Carmelo Anthony, no Karl Anthony Towns. So you take both those guys off the floor, that should allow Naz Reid to get even more shots up, even more usage. Looking at his numbers this season, he's played 250 minutes. Some of these minutes have been with Towns and Russell on the floor, or maybe not Towns, but with Russell on the floor. So if you were to take Russell out, his numbers probably look even better. But in those 250 minutes, 26% usage rate, so he's been a very high usage player, averaging over 1.2 fantasy points per minute, 12.3% total rebound percentage, so really good rebounding numbers from Naz Reid. Can get you a double-double, can get defensive stats. I mean, he's just a guy that you love to roster in DFS just because he's so productive. You know he's going to get points when he's out there. He's not a guy that's just going to stand out in the corner. He's going to be under the basket, fighting for rebounds, getting putbacks, getting you fantasy points, and that's what you love in DFS. So love me some Naz Reid today, even with the price coming up. Still one of my favorite plays, even at 5,500. But you could go to a guy like Rui for cheaper, especially as like a tournament play, as a tournament pivot off of Naz Reid. I assume Naz Reid comes in at higher ownership than Rui, but this is a really good matchup for Rui against the Bulls. This is a spot where he just did well against them a couple games ago. 36 DraftKings points in 32 minutes. Been getting the minutes recently. Played 30 minutes on Friday night against Cleveland. Have to assume he plays probably 30 to 32 minutes today. Probably projects for similar numbers to Naz Reid. I think Naz Reid gives you more upside than Rui, but both guys are in pretty good spots, especially Rui against the Bulls. Naz Reid against Jokic, I still like that matchup as well. Jokic, I mean, he's not like an elite defender by any means, and I think it's a matchup that Naz Reid can put up good numbers in, especially just with how productive of a player he is. But James Johnson, he was someone I liked a lot Friday night until we got word that Naz Reid was going to start. Once we got word Naz Reid was starting and James Johnson was going to the bench, that kind of lowered my interest in Johnson, and he only played 21 minutes, was still productive, had 28 DraftKings points in those 21 minutes, but it's hard to trust him now that he's coming off the bench. I would just rather roster Naz Reid, who's probably going to play more minutes and is the starter. So he's the guy I like at power forward. But under 5K, looking for really cheap values. I don't think there's any punt plays I like at power forward, at least not looking at this like the night before. Nothing really stands out under 5K. So let's go ahead and hit on center real quick just before we end the video. So at the top, you do have Nikola Jokic, 10,200 at home against the Timberwolves. This is obviously a really good spot for Jokic. No Karl-Anthony Towns. Even though Towns is not that good of a defender, it's still a really good matchup against Naz Reid. I don't assume that Naz Reid's going to be able to slow down Jokic on the offensive end. I think this is a spot where we could see both centers have a lot of success in terms of fantasy. And even with the injuries, even with the guys injured for Denver coming back last game, Jokic still played 34 minutes, even with Plumlee, Millsap, Grant all healthy. You still got 34 minutes from Jokic, so he's going to play 32 to 34 minutes if it's a close game. It's a good matchup. There's a lot of value today, at least as of now. There's some value that I like, so if you want to pay up for Jokic, I'm totally fine with that. I think I'd rather save $1,000 and play a guy like Zach LaVine, but you have plenty of salary. You've got $6,600 remaining per player if you build around these five guys, so you could easily get Jokic into your build if you want to go that route. I would prefer Jokic over a guy like Sabonis. Probably would prefer him over Whiteside as well. If I'm going to pay up at the center position, I mean, he's the guy that I like the most. But Christian Wood, I talked about. I really like him at 7,400. Steven Adams has been playing really well, but with his price coming up, I think I'd rather just roster Christian Wood for a little bit more. Serge Ibaka, I know he was kind of popular Friday night, burned a lot of people. At 6,700 today, I like the matchup against the Pacers. It's a spot where he should have to play big minutes. He played 40 minutes against them on the 7th of February. I'm not sure. I think that game might have went to overtime, but even if you factor in overtime, like he had still played 35 minutes at the end of regulation. He was very productive, putting up 40 DK points in that game. So he's also fine to go to. I think I'd slightly prefer him over Steven Adams. Still don't feel like either one of those guys are going to be core plays for me, though. Marquise Chris is questionable, so this is going to be a big entry to watch heading into Sunday night slate. This is an 8:30 game, so I'm not sure if we get this news before lock, but if Marquise Chris were to be ruled out, Kevon Looney is the absolute minimum. He's 3K on DraftKings. Played 18 minutes last game against Houston. That was with Chris starting and playing his normal minutes. I believe Chris played a good amount of minutes. I know he might have lost some time due to blowout. Oh, yeah, Chris actually only played 18 minutes, so that was kind of surprising. Not sure if he got hurt in that game or not, or just that was because of the blowout. But if you factor in Chris maybe being out today, you probably get like 26 to 28 minutes from Kevon Looney. So I guess we could talk about him when we get down to the value, but he would probably be a really good value play at minimum salary. Rui you have, though, you could play at 5,300, who we touched on earlier. Under 5K, though, for value at center, I guess we could go ahead and talk about Kevon Looney. If Marquise Chris were to be ruled out, we know Draymond Green's already going to be ruled out or already not going to play, so that does open up a lot of minutes in the front court. Looney is 3K. If he were to start, which I assume he would, if Chris is out, he'd be a really good value option you could go to. I guess you could go back to the Chicago bigs. They got priced up a little bit. Daniel Gafford was a guy I did like quite a bit Saturday night. Not really sure how he's doing. That game's going on as I'm recording this video. Even if he has a bad game Saturday night, like Chicago's just so short on bigs right now. As long as Luke Cornett and these guys remain out, as long as Cornett, Gafford, but Cornett, Wendell Carter, we know Markin is going to be out for a long period of time. So as long as Cornett and Wendell Carter Jr. are still out, Gafford, Felicio, and Thad Young, those are like the only three healthy bigs that the Bulls have. So I would assume they continue to get minutes. Gafford started Saturday night. I assume he starts again. It's a really good matchup against the Wizards. So at 3,500, Daniel Gafford, you can totally go to him as a value option today. But yeah, guys, I think we covered everything for Sunday's slate. Another 6-game slate today. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy, if this video helped you at all, would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below before you do get out of here. Make sure you click that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. Would appreciate it if you guys would do that. Check down in the description to my Patreon, my Twitter, all linked down below if you want to follow me on Twitter. I would appreciate it at DFS by Noah. Also, the Patreon is linked down below. You can get access to all of my updated NBA content. I do provide a lot of updated thoughts on the slate over there. With my article that I write Monday through Friday, give updated core plays pretty much every single day. I have a Discord chat you can join over on Patreon where we're talking through the slate throughout the day, trying to help you guys out as much as I can in terms of building out your lineups while also getting my lineups built. But yeah, guys, I think we plugged everything, covered everything for the 6-game slate. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much, and we will see you back on Monday. Peace.